Hey guys, TheAirsoftTech here, and today we're going to be taking a look at my ICS M16. A lot of people have been requesting me to review the internals and talk about it, so I'm going to today. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this gun actually, externals to internals. There's a lot of stuff that's been changed, a lot of stuff that isn't stock, and gets some pretty cool performance actually. So this is actually one of my most favorite guns, and like I said, we're going to talk about the externals and the internals, so let's get right down to it. So now on the externals, I myself haven't really done a whole lot. When I bought this gun, I bought it used from a fellow airsofter of mine who lives up in Clarksburg, which is a city way up north of me. So I bought it off of him because he was selling it for a good price, and I wanted another M16 or just another Stanag M4 mag gun, just because I have so many M4 mags. So on the outside, it's a full metal gun. It's got the receivers and all that stuff, and it's ICS, so it's got the trades on this side, right here. Pretty cool. It has all the functional stuff like, you know, the anti-reverse latch release and stuff like that. Split gearbox, definitely. And the coolest thing about this, on this right now, I think, is the rail system I have on it. I believe it's an Avengers free float rail system, which makes the barrel, you know, a little wobbly. Not a whole lot of wobble, but it's there. And it's definitely annoying, so I'm going to fix that. And I'm really OCD about stuff like that, so I'm definitely going to fix that. But, other than that, I've just kind of stuck a red dot on there by NC Star, and I've stuck flip-up sides on it because it kind of looks cool. That's really it. I've stuck a Magpul AFG at the very front. I like that feeling, so I stuck it up there, and I had one, didn't have anything else to put it on, so I stuck it on here. It's got a full stock, so I got plenty of room for the battery and a really cool part I have inside of it. So we're gonna get to that in just a second, though. That's really it. There's really not a whole lot. Like I said, there's not a whole lot going on for externals, so that's about it, really. Now the internals are gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna go over all that right now. Okay, so just like I said previously, this gun is an ICS split version gun. So that means it has this really cool split design going, and it just makes everything so much easier, and it's going to make this video that much cooler. So first off, we're going to review the barrel components, and we're going to work our way back. So let's get down to it. Alright, so here's the hop-up unit for my gun, and it's the stock hop-up unit, yes, because mainly it works fantastic, and I really don't need to replace it. And it's one piece, so yada yada yada, no need to replace it. However, it is broken up front here. However, that does not cause any negative effects, really. You would think that would mess up the air seal and, you know, all that stuff, but it really doesn't, so I'm not really too concerned with it, and I'm not really in a big rush to replace it. I will be replacing it eventually with a GMP or Lonex hop-up that I will have to modify to fit. You do have to modify Tokyo Marui style hop-ups to actually fit, because the ICS one isn't exactly, you know, on spec. There's just a few little things you gotta do. Not a whole lot, so it's not really a whole lot of work, and I might make a later video on that when I actually get to it. But like I said, this is a stock plastic hop-up unit. It works great, and I have a Lodex 70 debugging in it, flat hopped, so there's, you know, got some good accuracy going there, and that's really the hop-up unit, and let's go down to the barrel. So the barrel in my gun right now is a Mad Bull 6.03 aluminum barrel. This is really the perfect barrel for my gun as far as like diameter goes. The 6.03 barrel is just perfect for a gun such as this that I'm using for field and high speed, yet I want to maintain my 400 or so FPS. This barrel just helps out with accuracy and range. However, I do know that majority of the accuracy and range does come from the hop-up, but some of it also does come from the barrel. And if you have a nice barrel to complement your nice hop-up setup, then you're going to get some nice range and accuracy, which is exactly what I'm getting due to my setup. This barrel, like I said, is made out of aluminum, so it's not really the perfect barrel for high speed, or DMRs really, but it will do just fine. I would like to replace it with like a 6.03 Prometheus along the road sometime. However, this is working just fine for now, and I see no need to replace it. And as well, this barrel does come with some very nice crowning, which I particularly like. Now, let's check out the upper part of the gearbox, which will compose the spring guide, the spring, the piston head, the tack plate and air nozzle, and the cylinder and cylinder head. So the spring guide I have chosen to use is the SHS CNC ball bearing spring guide. Works great, cheap, and that's really all it needs to do. Now the spring I have in here is a very well worn out M120 spring, which originally when I had gotten the spring and started using it, it was getting around 400 to 410 FPS, which is about what I normally get with an M120 spring, and it's full cylinder especially. Now that it's worn down a lot, you can see that it's kind of like twisted and kind of not as straight as what it used to be, but it still gets me pretty good FPS. I'm getting around 385 to 390. It's very well settled in it over a year of use, so that's about what I'm expecting out of, I think this was a Mad Bull spring of some sort, or a Matrix. So, not the greatest quality, but it's doing a pretty good job, I guess. Now, the upper gearbox that you can see right here, the gearbox shell, there's a significant amount of reinforcement. It's thicker than other version 2 shells, and as a result, I have not radiused it because it would take, I would be removing too much material to actually radius effectively. I would in turn be reducing the strength instead of increasing it, and there's no point in doing that. This gearbox shell is incredibly strong. It will not be cracking anytime soon, because prior to this build, I was running an M170 at about 15 rounds a second full stroke. So I have absolutely no fear of it cracking under an M120. Let's move on. Now for my compression parts, I've just chosen the general stuff, really. There's nothing too special in here. I mean, a full cylinder by ZCI, an SHS metal cylinder head, a Mars air nozzle, and a Lonex tappet plate accompanied by a core piston head. There really isn't a whole lot going on here that's special. However, if you have a slight, if you can see, then you'll notice that the piston has some faucet washers on the front of it. You may be wondering why I've done this. Well, when you correct angle of engagement, you have two options. Stick it on the piston or stick it on the cylinder head. Now, the general consensus is to stick it on the cylinder head because you're not increasing weight, therefore, especially in a high RPS build, you're reducing your chance of premature engagement as well as pickup tooth failure. However, to get really good and consistent FPS, I've elected to actually correct the angle of engagement off my piston instead of off the cylinder head. This does the same thing as far as angle of engagement is concerned, but it increases my piston weight, which in turn increases my consistency and a little bit of accuracy. And also it increases my FPS, because if you stick it on the cylinder head, you're losing more air volume, whereas if you stick it on the piston, you're actually gaining weight. Therefore, your piston accelerates a little bit slower, which helps compression out a lot. Now, that's really all I've got going on here that's really special. If I take off the cylinder head, you'll just notice that there's not much damper on it, because I did correct angle engagement off of this. That's just about it, really. And I did have to switch cheese the piston a little bit because I was getting a little bit of premature engagement. I was hoping I could get away with it, but I couldn't. So that's really all I did there. But I did put the faucet washers on there, like I said, just so I can keep my FPS and keep it as high as I can, because I don't like to do it off the cylinder head too much anymore, unless it's a basic build, which this is not really a basic build. It's pretty high RPS. And I want some good FPS consistency, so I did it this way. Other than that, that's really about it up here. Not a whole lot special going on. As you can see there, I've removed the second to last tooth completely for angle of engagement, as well as I've removed half the third tooth for, half the third to last tooth for proper angle of engagement as well, so nothing messes up. Also, one more thing I almost forgot to mention. The tappet plate here, I have actually shortened the fin of it because my sector gear was pulling it back too far. So when the piston would slam forward, this actually was not all the way forward. Therefore, my FPS was around 310, which is incredibly low for an M120. So I shortened the fin down a little bit, and it pulled it back just as far as it normally does, allowing my gun to feed, but then it released it sooner, which allowed it to go forward all the way to seal with the hop unit and bucking before the piston was actually released. So therefore, I'm getting the perfect amount of the perfect FPS I can get out of this gun, really. That's really all I got in the upper components. Let's go down to the lower gearbox components. There's a lot more cool stuff going on down there, trust me. So here are all the internals together, the upper and the lower. The upper is just on top of the lower, and I wanted to show you guys that this is what the ICS split gearbox looks like when it's kind of all together. This is not how you install it back into a gun, but this is just how it looks, and it looks pretty cool. So let's actually get down to the lower part of the gearbox and actually talk about what's going on down there, the wiring, and the motor. Before we get into the actual gearbox, we're going to look at the wiring and the motor. As you can see, the wiring system I have here is a Black Talon Concepts Chimera Mark II. It is just a really awesome advanced MOSFET unit that does all kinds of stuff for me. It allows me to get rid of my cutoff lever, it allows me to get rid of the safety bar, just all kinds of little pieces that are, or parts that are really kind of stupid. And it does a ton of other things, and I might talk about it in a later video, but in this gun I do have 3-round burst with ramping on it, or I'm sorry, burst auto hybrid as on my full auto function. That's really about all I got going. But this thing can do so much more, such as lipo monitoring, it can do active braking, it can even slow down your rate of fire if you really wanted it to, because it's going too fast, and a field may say, hey, your gun is shooting too fast, lower it down, or get a new gun, and you can just lower it down with this MOSFET. That's why it's so cool, and that's why I've chosen to use it in my ICS M16. Just a perfect MOSFET, and I love it to pieces. It just is so cool. So now enough talking about the MOSFET, let's talk about the motor. I've chosen to use a Lonex A2 motor. This Lonex A2 motor is about 15 TPA if I remember correctly. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, I know it. So I'll find out here soon. But I have chosen the Lonex A2 motor mainly because it's fast, and yet it's still kind of torquey. So it's more of a balanced motor if you ask me, sitting at around 15 TPA. If I remember correctly, it is balanced in my opinion. The magnets are actually decently weak. They're not, I mean, they're neodymium magnets, so they're strong. But at the same time, compared to other neodymium magnets like ZCI, they're not as strong. ZCI, this is a ZCI balance, and this is a Lonex A2 motor. ZCI balance has way stronger magnets. But this motor is much faster than the CCI balance because it has weaker magnets and a faster design armature. Instead of using the Lonex pinion, I've chosen to use the SHS pinion. It's just so much stronger and actually meshes way better with the SHS gears than Lonex does. Go figure. But other than that, that's really all there is going for this motor. Super fast yet strong, and that's what I like. And it's got a nice pinion on it, so no worry about breakage or meshing problems because this gun is perfectly shimmed. So here are the lower components and the lower gearbox. Now as you can see, I have some SHS 13-to-1 gears. Very nice here. Oh, there goes the anti-versatile choval. They spin very, very well, mainly because they're the closest to perfectly shimmed they can be. These gears are actually incredibly smooth. These are the Gen 3 gears. They're some of the earlier ones that were actually very, very strong. So there's no worry of them breaking at all. I actually ran them on an M170 on full auto, so I have absolutely no worry these gears will strip anytime soon, especially the bevel. It's just fine. And like I said, they're very well shimmed. They're not going to break anytime soon due to how well shimmed they are. They're very, very smooth, and they're great gears. I like them. And on top of the SHS sector gear, you can tell I have an SHS sector delay chip. Now without this, my gun actually won't feed. And if like I said, how I cut my tappet plate fin kind of in half so I could seal better with the hop unit. If I actually use a full fin hopper or full fin tappet without cutting or anything, and I use no sector delay chip, it still wouldn't feed properly. So that's just, oh well. Now I do have a Chimera MOSFET in here, which is actually really, really sweet. Like I said in the previously, it's just an all-around fantastic MOSFET that does so much for me. I still get a little bit of overspin, but oh well. And here are some ICS 7mm bushings, fantastic bushings. They were actually very well into the gearbox shell, so I couldn't even remove them if I wanted to. I do have the ICS trigger in here as well. I've routed the wire properly so nothing's getting torn up and nothing's getting destroyed, so everything's fine there. But yeah, that's really about everything in the lower part of the gearbox. It's fantastic. I love it to pieces, and especially the Chimera FET. It's just awesome.